Saint Irenaeus was the second bishop of Lyon, France. He is recognized for his role in guiding and expanding Christian communities in the south of France and, more widely, for the development of Christian theology by combating heresy and defining orthodoxy. The main goal of Saint Irenaeus against heresies was to counteract Christian teachings he believed to be false and insidious. Most of those doctrines fell under the category of Gnosticism, a 2nd-century Christian movement that emphasized knowledge as the key to salvation. Irenaeus set out not only to show the absurdity of the Gnostic systems but also to warn against the ethical dangers of such systems. Saint Paul I, Pope, was the Bishop of Rome and ruler of the emerging Papal States from 29th of May 757 to his death. He first served as a Roman deacon and was frequently employed by his brother, Pope Stephen II, in negotiations with the Lombard kings. After Stephen II's death on 26 April 757, Paul prevailed over a faction that wanted to make Archdeacon Theophylact pope and was chosen to succeed his brother by the majority that wished a continuation of Stephen's policy. Saint Paul, a Jew of Tarsus, in modern-day Turkey. He never met Jesus while our Lord was on earth, and was among the first to persecute Christians, whom he considered a dangerous sect. Paul was a proud advocate of the Jewish tradition who sought to prosecute the church and the first Christians. He first experienced his calling to serve Jesus while on the road to Damascus to prosecute those Christians who fled Jerusalem. Ever since his conversion traveled over 10,000 miles proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. Saint Peter the Apostle, original name Simon, was a fisherman before Jesus had called Peter to follow him and since became one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, and the first leader of the early church. The Roman Catholic Church recognizes Peter as the first bishop of Rome or pope. Peter was called to be a disciple of Jesus at the beginning of his ministry. Peter was the only disciple among the 12 to be married. When Jesus called Peter to follow him, he surrendered everything and followed him. These proto-martyrs of Rome were the first Christians persecuted en masse by the Emperor Nero in the year 64, before the martyrdom of Saints Peter and Paul. Nero caused a fire that burned down much of Rome in the same year. He blamed the fire on the Christians and put them to death, many by crucifixion, being feeding to the wild animals in his circus, or by being tied to posts and lit up as human torches. Saint Aaron is a prophet, high priest, and the brother of Moses. When Moses first confronted the Egyptian king about the Israelites, Aaron served as his brother's spokesman, prophet, to the Pharaoh. Part of the law, Torah, that Moses received from God at Sinai granted Aaron the priesthood for himself and his male descendants, and he became the first high priest of the Israelites. Aaron died before the Israelites crossed the North Jordan River. According to legend, Martynian and Processus were imperial soldiers assigned as the warders of St. Peter and St. Paul in a Mamertine prison. The apostles converted their jailers after a spring flowed miraculously in the prison. Peter then baptized them in the miraculous waters. By order of the Emperor Nero, the guards were then arrested, tortured, and beheaded. After their martyrdom with Paul, a sympathizer called Lucina buried them in her own cemetery. Saint Leo II was Bishop of Rome from 17th of August 682 to his death. He is one of the popes of the Byzantine papacy. He was known as an eloquent preacher who was interested in music, and noted for his charity to the poor. Leo as the pope confirmed the acts of the Sixth Ecumenical Council, 680–681, against monothelitism, abolished the tax it had been customary for them to pay when they received the pallium. In apparent response to Lombard raids, he transferred the relics of a number of martyrs from the catacombs to churches inside the walls of the city. Leo also reformed the Gregorian chant and composed several sacred hymns for the divine office. Saint Thomas the Apostle was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus. He is also known as Doubting Thomas because he doubted Jesus' resurrection when he was first told of it. Later, he confessed his faith on seeing Jesus' crucifixion. Tradition says that at the dispersal of the apostles after Pentecost this saint was sent to evangelize the Parthians, Medes, and Persians, he ultimately reached India, carrying the faith to the Malabar coast, which still boasts a large native population calling themselves Christians of St. Thomas. According to Syrian Christian tradition, St. Thomas was allegedly martyred at St. Thomas Mount in Chennai on 3 July in AD 72. Saint Elisabeth of Portugal was married at age 12 to King Diniz of Portugal, and thus Queen of Portugal before she was a teenager. The king was known for his immoral acts. Although Elizabeth suffered 3 years of abuse and adultery, she never stopped praying all the while for the king's conversion, and working with the poor and sick. During the civil war between her son Prince Afonso and King Diniz, Elizabeth got on a mule and rode onto the battlefield between them and reconciled them. After the death of King Diniz, Elizabeth distributed her property to the poor, became a Franciscan tertiary, and retired to a monastery of Poor Clares she had founded at Coimbra. Saint Ulrich of Augsburg was Bishop of Augsburg in Germany. He was the first saint to be canonized not by a local authority but by the Pope. He was ordained as Bishop of Augsburg on December 28, 923. During his time as bishop, he built churches, visited from parish to parish, worked with the sick in hospitals, set a good example for his priests to follow, and brought relics from Rome. His good works paid off in the form of improved moral and social conditions for both the clergy and laity.
We love it that you have spent your time listening to this video until the end. Would you like to share your experience of God's love? Come and join us at www.mustardseedscommunity.com/join-us. Till then, may God's blessing always be with you.